When he touched me, I used to melt. Now I brace myself and pretend I'm not disappearing. That night, when he came into my room, I couldn't say no. Not because I wanted him, but because I didn't know how to want myself again. My name is Leah. I'm 39. And I used to believe love meant giving, even when it hurt. It's strange, confessing this. Like I'm peeling something tender open in front of a stranger. But I guess that's what I need right now. Honesty. Because what happened that night, when he came into my room, didn't start with that moment. It started years before, in the quiet erosion of what used to feel like home. I've been married to Evan for 11 years. We met when I was teaching yoga and he was recovering from a shoulder injury. There was laughter. So much of it. He'd lift me up with his good arm and spin me around in the middle of our tiny kitchen, his curls still damp from the shower, his voice humming off-key to some classic rock ballad. Back then, his touch felt electric. It made me feel seen, not just wanted, but chosen. I miss that woman sometimes. The one who used to lean into his body without thinking twice, who used to fall asleep tangled up in his limbs like it was the most natural thing in the world. But now when he touches me, I feel like I disappear a little more. Last Tuesday, he kissed the back of my neck while I was folding laundry. I smiled, because that's what I've been trained to do, be agreeable, don't ruin the mood. But the kiss didn't land like it used to. It felt automatic. Like a password typed too fast. He lingered there for a second, his hand resting low on my hip, and I froze, not because I didn't love him, but because I couldn't feel myself in the moment. I didn't want to be touched. But I didn't know how to say that without wounding him. So I didn't say anything. That's been happening more often than I care to admit. The slow chilling of once warm gestures. His arms around me during movies used to feel protective. Now they feel like fences. His, "You look beautiful," in the morning sounds like something he's supposed to say, not something he believes. Or maybe it's me who doesn't believe it anymore. I started noticing how often I brace myself for affection, like I'm anticipating a need I can't meet. A few nights ago, he came to bed after I'd already tucked in. I felt the mattress dip and his hand slide under the blanket. He was gentle. Tender, even. But I wasn't there. My body was present, but my heart was on mute. I let him spoon me. I let his fingers trace patterns across my skin. I even turned toward him when he leaned in for a kiss. But when his lips met mine, something inside me flinched. Not visibly. Just a little tremor under the surface. I wanted to want him. God, I did. But my mouth didn't open. My hands didn't move. The kiss just died between us. He didn't say anything. Just rested his forehead against mine and sighed. I pretended I was tired. And maybe I was, just not in the way he thought. I remember when it shifted. The exact moment. It wasn't dramatic. It was Wednesday afternoon. I was refilling the bird feeder on the porch. He came outside, took the bag of seed from my hands, and said, "Let me, you'll spill it." It was such a small thing. But something about the way he said it, the way he gently pushed me aside, not meanly, just habitually, made me feel like I was fading. That's when it hit me. Somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like his partner and started feeling like a routine. And then, days later, he came into my room, without knocking, like always, and I couldn't say no. Not because I didn't love him. But because I didn't know how to stop loving him while still loving myself. Evans always believed actions speak louder than words. It's one of the first things I learned about him when we started dating. He wasn't a poet. He didn't flood me with compliments or write long texts. But he showed up when my tire blew on the freeway, drove 3 hours when my mom was in the ER, and remembered how I take my tea, 2 sugars, no milk. He's a man who fixes things. And now, I think that's part of the problem. Because when something feels broken between us, he tries to fix it with his hands. That morning, after the night he came into my room, I stood by the kitchen sink rinsing blueberries for my son's lunch. My back was tense. The air between us, thick with unspoken things. Evan walked in, fresh from a shower, smelling like that eucalyptus soap I once told him made me dizzy in the best way. He wrapped his arms around me from behind and pressed his lips to my neck. "Morning, babe." I forced a smile, tilting my head just enough to acknowledge the gesture. His hands traveled lower, resting just above my hips, warm and familiar. He held me like he used to, like I was his. But instead of comfort, all I felt was distance. Because all I wanted him to ask was, "Are you okay?" But instead, he said, "I was thinking we could sneak away this weekend. Just us. Leave Ethan with my sister. Maybe rent that cabin we loved." He was trying. I know he was. That's what made it harder. I turned, still in his arms. "That place is 4 hours away, Evan. I've got 2 classes to cover on Saturday and a parent meeting Sunday." He looked disappointed, but brushed it off. "We'll find time. I just want you. I miss you." And there it was, the weight of his love resting in my lap like a gift I didn't know how to hold. "I'm here," I whispered. But I don't think he believed me. Hell, I didn't even believe myself. Evan is a trauma nurse. His days are filled with people in crisis. He's used to acting fast, making decisions, moving bodies, stabilizing pain. And when he comes home, he doesn't talk much about what he's seen. Instead, he fixes dinner. He folds laundry. He slides into bed and kisses my shoulder like clockwork. But sometimes I wish he'd just break open in front of me. Let me see the cracks. Instead, he touches. That's his language. But for me? I need words. I need stillness. I need someone to sit in silence with me and not try to fill it with sex or plans or hands that don't know where I've gone. Last night, he tried again. I was brushing my teeth, hair piled on my head, oversized shirt clinging to my damp skin. He leaned against the bathroom doorframe, watching me. "You're beautiful," he said quietly. I paused, toothbrush mid-air. "I look like a wet dog." He laughed. Stepped closer. "A very sexy wet dog." I smiled, genuinely that time, but it didn't reach my chest. He came behind me, slid his arms around my waist, and looked at us in the mirror. "Come to bed," he murmured. My heart stuttered. Not because I didn't want him, but because I didn't know how to be with him. Not fully. Not with this wall between us. Still, I followed him. Because that's what wives do, right? In bed, he touched me like a man trying to reclaim something he couldn't name. His hands moved with memory, not curiosity. He didn't ask what I wanted. He assumed he already knew. And I let him. I stayed quiet. I nodded when he kissed me. I let him roll on top of me like always. But my body felt like a stage set, perfectly arranged, hollow inside. Later, when he fell asleep curled around me, I stared at the ceiling, heart wide open and screaming into a silence he couldn't hear. He thinks I'm pulling away because I'm stressed. But the truth is, I don't know how to tell him I feel invisible when he touches me like I'm supposed to respond. I don't know how to ask, "Why don't you see me anymore?" There's this thing that happens when your body starts to flinch before your mind does. A reflex you can't name, can't quite stop. It's like muscle memory, except instead of reaching for someone, you start pulling away. Last night, Evan came home late again. His shifts at the hospital have been brutal lately, double back-to-backs, trauma cases non-stop. I get it. I really do. He's exhausted. I see it in the way he drops his bag, peels off his scrubs, and sinks into the couch like the air itself is too heavy to stand in. But still, when I walked past him with a basket of laundry, he smacked my butt playfully and said, "Hey, beautiful. You're looking good." I laughed, because it was expected. But inside, I winced. Not because it hurt. Not because he meant anything by it. But because it felt like a shortcut, like he didn't know how to say, "How are you really?" So he said, "You're hot," instead. And I'm tired of being touched in place of being seen. Later, he climbed into bed while I was reading. My eyes stayed on the page, but my chest tightened the second the mattress dipped. He ran his hand up my thigh, slow and warm, resting it just beneath the hem of my sleep shorts. "Missed you," he whispered. I didn't answer right away. "Leah." I lowered the book. "I know. I've just been tired." "You're always tired lately," he said, not unkindly. "Just, confused." He leaned in, brushing his lips against my shoulder, then kissed his way toward my collarbone like he used to. Once, that would have undone me. Now, it felt like watching a movie I already knew the ending to. His fingers found the edge of my bra. I closed my eyes, trying to will myself into the moment. "You used to want this, Leah. You used to need this." But I couldn't fake the warmth that wouldn't come. I shifted away slightly, just enough to create space without making it obvious. He noticed. "Did I do something?" he asked. "No," I lied. "I'm just not, in the mood." Silence. He rolled onto his back, arms behind his head, staring at the ceiling. I could feel his frustration. Not angry. Just, lost. He didn't push. He never does. That almost makes it worse. Because he thinks he's being respectful. Gentle. But I can feel how much he wants me to want him, and I hate that I can't give him that. I hate that I don't even know why. I turned toward the wall, away from him, pretending to drift off. But my mind was screaming. Why does everything have to turn into sex? Can't we just sit in silence and breathe the same air? Can't you just hold my hand without expecting my body to say, yes, when my heart hasn't caught up? Sometimes I feel like he's trying to fix the emptiness between us by filling it with kisses and soft moans. But my emptiness needs more than touch. It needs truth. It needs presence. It needs someone who sees that my body isn't always the way back to me. Sometimes, it's the thing I hide inside. And tonight? I hid again. Not because I don't love him. But because I'm not sure who I am when I'm with him anymore. It started with pasta. I had made dinner, real dinner, for the first time in weeks. Penne arrabbiata with roasted garlic bread and a tossed salad, because Evan loved spicy food and said no one made it like I did. I even opened a bottle of wine and lit a candle. Maybe I was trying. Maybe I wanted to feel something again, even if it was just the memory of who we used to be. He came home later than expected, as always. Walked in with a tired smile and a distracted, "Hey, babe." Kissed my cheek and washed his hands. His phone buzzed twice while he was drying them. He checked it. Responded. Didn't say a word. We sat across from each other, steam rising from our plates, candle flickering like it was trying to stay alive. "How was work?" I asked, gently. "Busy," he said. "We lost a teenager on the table today. Car accident." Mom was in the hallway screaming. My heart caught. God. "Evan. Are you okay?" He shrugged. "It happens." But I saw it, the way his jaw clenched, how his hands curled around his glass like he needed something to hold him down. I wanted to reach across the table. I didn't. He wouldn't know what to do with it. Or maybe I was the one who wouldn't. He ate quietly for a few minutes, and then he said, "Thanks for cooking. It's been a while since we did this." And there was no venom in it. Just, a statement. But it landed like a slap. "I know," I said softly. "It's been hard." "Yeah," he replied, still chewing. We just have to make more of an effort, right? More of an effort. Something about that phrase cracked me wide open. An effort. Like this was a project. Like we were a house with chipped paint and a crooked fence that just needed some attention and elbow grease. I stared down at my plate, heart thudding. He didn't notice. Instead, he said, "You remember that time we cooked together in that awful Airbnb? The one where the fire alarm went off even though we weren't burning anything?" I nodded. Smiled faintly. But something was building in me. Loud and sharp. He kept talking, reminiscing, joking. His voice got lighter. He probably thought we were finally reconnecting. That the wine and the pasta and the flickering candle meant progress. But the more he talked, the more I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of everything we weren't saying. Finally, I put my fork down. Quietly. Intentionally. "Evan." He looked up, mid-sentence. "I need to say something, and I don't know how to say it without hurting you." His face fell just slightly. "Okay," I swallowed hard. "When you came into my room that night. I didn't want it. I didn't want you. But I didn't know how to say no without it becoming a thing. So I said nothing. And now I feel like I'm disappearing every time you touch me and expect it to mean the same thing it used to." The silence that followed was so thick I could barely breathe. He blinked. Slowly. Processing. "Wait, you didn't want it?" he asked, voice low. "No," I whispered. "But I didn't know how to say no. Because I love you. Because I'm scared that if I start telling you all the ways I'm not okay, you'll realize I'm not the woman you married anymore." He leaned back in his chair like I'd physically pushed him. "I thought we were just off. I thought maybe you were tired." "I didn't think you were." He stopped. Jaw tense. "You should have told me." "I'm telling you now," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "I don't want to keep pretending. I want you. But I don't know how to find my way back." He didn't yell. Didn't accuse. He just looked, gutted. Hollow. Then he stood up. Quietly. Walked into the bedroom. Closed the door behind him. I sat there alone, staring at a candle burning down to its base. And for the first time in months, I let myself cry. Not because I wanted him to come out. Not because I needed him to fix it. But because I had finally said it out loud. And I didn't know what came next. The days that followed were hollow. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet in a way that made every sound feel sharp. The clink of silverware. The rustle of sheets. The muted thump of his footsteps when he walked past me without saying much. We didn't fight. We didn't talk. We just stopped existing together. He started sleeping on the edge of the bed, sometimes with his back to me. Once or twice, he slept on the couch. I never asked him to. He never said he needed to. But the distance between our bodies was now mirroring the one inside me, undeniable. At breakfast, we shared silence over black coffee and dry toast. He read the news on his phone. I scrolled through emails I didn't care about. Occasionally, he'd ask something like, "You need the car later?" or "Did you switch the laundry?" and I'd nod or say yes. Functional. Practical. Nothing more. One morning, I watched him while he poured himself cereal. His shoulders looked tired, like he hadn't rested properly in days. The sleeves of his t-shirt were wrinkled. His hair was still damp from the shower and messy, like he hadn't bothered to fix it. I used to run my fingers through that hair. Now I wasn't sure if I was allowed to look at him too long. There was no villain in this story. That's what made it harder. Evan wasn't cruel. He wasn't careless. He loved me the way he knew how. But sometimes, the way someone loves you isn't the way you need to be loved. And maybe I had changed. Maybe I'd gone silent for too long. Let resentment eat through too many nights. Or maybe I'd ignored my own loneliness because naming it out loud meant admitting I was unhappy. But I missed him. Not the way he touched me. Not the routine intimacy or the heavy silence. I missed the old us. The way he used to laugh with his whole body. The way we used to dance barefoot in the living room, drunk off cheap wine and each other. I missed being seen, really seen, and not just undressed. One night, I found him sitting in the garage, the door cracked open, cigarette burning slowly between his fingers. He doesn't even smoke, hasn't in years. I stood there quietly, unsure whether to go to him or leave him be. He didn't look at me, but he said, "I don't know how to touch you without hurting you now." That sentence sat between us like a bruise. I wanted to say something. Anything. But I just whispered, "I don't want you to disappear." He nodded. Didn't respond. The hardest part wasn't the anger. It was the stillness. The uncertainty. The sense that we were two people staring across a river that didn't used to be there. And I kept asking myself, is this just a rough season? Or is this the beginning of goodbye? That night, as I lay alone in bed, I touched my own arm. Just to feel something warm. Something human. And I knew, with a weight that sat low in my chest, something had to change. Either we'd find each other again, or we'd have to let go. But I couldn't keep living in this in-between. Not if I wanted to find myself again. It happened on a Sunday. The kind that smelled like fresh rain and burnt coffee. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, folding the same t-shirt of Evan's for the third time just to keep my hands busy. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of the wood floors. Evan stood in the doorway. He didn't say anything for a while. Just leaned his shoulder against the frame and watched me, like he was trying to remember something, maybe who I used to be. Then he spoke, voice low and flat, "I booked a hotel downtown for a few nights." My hands paused. "I think we need space," he added. "Not because I don't care. But because I don't know how to show up for you if I don't understand you anymore." I looked up at him, searching for anger in his face, or resentment. But there was none. Only exhaustion. Sadness. Honesty. "Do you want to come back?" I asked. He breathed out slowly. "I don't know." That answer didn't break me the way I thought it would. Because for the first time in weeks, we weren't pretending. I stood, walked over to him, and placed my hand gently on his chest. Not in a way that asked for more. Just to feel his heartbeat, to remember it still echoed against mine, even if it no longer matched. "I don't know either," I whispered. And in that moment, we weren't husband and wife. We were just two people trying to find the thread in the wreckage. He leaned in and kissed my forehead, soft, reverent. The kind of kiss that says I loved you. I still do. But maybe love isn't enough if we don't know how to hold it. That night, I slept alone. Not because I was angry. But because sometimes, you have to step apart to see whether something can still be saved. If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd one day be afraid of my husband's touch, I would have laughed. Evan was safety. He was Sunday mornings and warm hands and playlists we made on road trips, each song a timestamp of who we used to be. He was the man who carried my yoga mat when I was 8 months pregnant, who rubbed my feet without asking, who left little notes on the mirror when I had hard days. But love isn't just about what was. It's about what survives when things stop being easy. The night he came into my room, the one I can't seem to forget, I said nothing. I let my silence answer questions I didn't know how to translate. I gave him access to a body that no longer felt like mine, because that's what I thought marriage demanded. It wasn't assault. It wasn't violence. But it was a betrayal, not of him, but of me. And I carry that with me still. I don't blame Evan for not knowing. I don't even blame myself anymore for not speaking. We were both trying to reach for something familiar, hoping it would bring us back to each other. But comfort without consent isn't connection. It's choreography. And I was dancing steps I hadn't agreed to. After he left for the hotel, I sat in the silence of our house and listened. To the creaks of old wood. The hum of the fridge. The rustle of the wind through the bedroom window. But most of all, I listened to myself. And I realized something I'd been avoiding for a long time: I had disappeared. Piece by piece. Moment by moment. In every small yes I gave when I wanted to say no. In every fake smile. Every closed-eye kiss. Every touch I endured for the sake of peace. I had erased myself to make room for someone else's idea of love. But love shouldn't cost your voice. It shouldn't come at the expense of your body's truth. When Evan came back a few days later, we sat across from each other on the living room floor, no candles, no plans, no distractions. Just two people, stripped of the myth that longevity equals success. "I don't think I know who we are anymore," I said. He nodded. "I don't either." We talked for hours. About sex. About silence. About what it meant when I didn't speak up. About how scared he was to lose me, how he thought if he kept touching me, I'd come back. But bodies don't heal through pressure. They soften with care. And that care begins with listening. We didn't decide that night. But we agreed on this: no more pretending. It's been 4 months now. We're still living in the same house. Still figuring it out. Some nights, he sleeps on the couch. Some nights, we fall asleep with our backs touching, just enough to feel human, not enough to misread it. He doesn't come into my room without knocking anymore. And when I say, "Not tonight," he just nods. No hurt. No guilt. Just space. Respect. That simple pause, that grace, has done more to make me feel loved than anything else in years. We're not perfect. We might not even make it. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm allowed to show up as myself. Not the wife. Not the peacemaker. Not the body that keeps the house warm. Just Leah. And if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt what I felt, the ache of wanting to disappear in your own bed, the pressure to perform love when you can't feel it, I want you to know something: you don't have to say yes just because someone loves you. And you don't have to feel guilty for finally saying no. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is come back home to yourself.